whilst we're not trying to close certain activities down, if you are very sporty and you like to spend time in the bar and in the the sort of nightclub type activities, that's great, and we don't want to stop that, of course. But we also need alternatives. We need other sorts of spaces and other activities. So the SU in the last 12 months have been doing more on that, and will continue to do that, because the student body is asking for that. It's a range. I mean, interestingly, just a slight digression perhaps, but the recent figures on alcohol consumption of young people are really interesting, because actually young people are now drinking less than they were. So for years we've seen this massive rise in young people's consumption of alcohol, but actually it's gone the other way. So there are now rising numbers of teenagers and student-age students who either don't drink at all or drink very rarely. Mm-hmm. So where you have a university campus that is, say, dominated by a drinking culture, you're not going to be appealing to all the students. You've got to provide that range of opportunity and range of clubs and range of activities. So the student community in any university is diversifying in all respects, in terms of ability, disability, class, interests, background, home culture, etc., etc. It's massively diversifying, and will continue to do so. Partly because of policy, but also because the way the population has changed as well, and is therefore reflected in the higher education community. So, the stark awareness of that comes when you think back to what a university would have been like 50 years ago compared to now. It's a massive change in terms of cultures and backgrounds, and even the international mix is radically different. So it's, inevitably we've already moved with the time, but we've got to I like to think it'd be nice to try and get ahead of the curve a bit with some of this stuff, and sort of plan ahead and be not end up being reactive all the time, but try to get ahead of it. Which is these things aren't easy, are they? They're not easy to solve, and they often take investment and budget as well. And you can only spend what you get. You can't. There isn't a magic money tree that we can just use. So it's about trying to cut our cloth. I'm sure I've rambled off the point there, but have you got other particular?
I have a few very specific questions that have come up from some of my other interviewees, if that's okay. With the new curriculum 2017 and the change from, I'm trying to say this the right way around, more coursework-based summative assessment rather than the traditional exam and coursework, with the view that they're backed up by more formative assessments in class, do you think that would have a positive, negative impact on inclusivity for our students? Are you seeing anything come back to you?
Well, the intention was, and is, that what we have created is a more balanced diet of assessment. That's the key phrase. It's a balanced diet. And again, it comes back to the earlier points I was making about trying to appeal to at least some of the students for some of the time. So, the extreme example would be if all we were doing was offering formal examinations, and that's all student X did, then clearly that won't be suitable for every student in the cohort. So what we're trying to get is a fair balance with different types of assessments across the student experience in the course. In order to achieve that, we have, as part of the curriculum framework, we wanted to have fewer formal examinations and more assignment-based work or other forms of assessment. So that was a way of making sure that we got that balance. And the issue about formative assessment was, I think this is perhaps where there is still conversations to be had, and I think, my view of what formative assessment is it is certainly not replacing summative assessment with the same kind of activity but just not formally assessed. It's not saying, well, we'll take this exam out, but we'll still give you a test and I'll still have to mark it and you'll still get a grade for it. It's not about that. What it's about is simply saying, if the students have got to be summatively assessed by either an assignment or a presentation or an exam, what am I doing as a tutor to prepare them for that, to assist them for that, to make sure that they've got the best possible chance of success in that final assessment, whatever it is, whether it's an exam or something different. So the formative assessment activities are intended to help, guide, advise, give the students some practice in whatever it is they're going to end up doing. It's therefore about information. It's information for me as a tutor about how well they're doing, and it's also information for the students. So if I do an in-class test that's maybe a 10-minute activity and my partner marks it at the desk and it shows that I've done really well, then fine. But if it shows that I don't really know much about that particular topic, then that's good for me to know as a student, but it's also good for the member of staff to know, because it means the cohort doesn't understand it. So that's what formative assessment is about. It's supposed to, coming back to your question, it is intended to help us with this drive for inclusivity, because it's about giving students the best possible chance of success, maximising their potential for success by making sure that we don't fall into what would be an absurd situation in that we fling out an assessment. The students have got no preparation for it, no understanding of how to do it, and they go in there on a sink or swim basis. That's not good practice, and that's really what we need to avoid. But yeah, it's the balance, isn't it? It's giving students an opportunity to have a range of assessment types. Traditionally, research and data would suggest that male students do better in examinations and less well in coursework assignments, because they just quite happily will swat up at the last minute and crash into an exam and just download it and it's all there. And traditionally, female learners have done better in coursework. So, the data is not conclusive and it's not massively different, but it would suggest that there is that range. I'm not sure that as we go forward that will continue to be the case, because it's muddied by a whole series of other factors now going on in education. So, for example, we take in a range of learners from different backgrounds. So many of our students now come with BTECs, and BTEC hasn't thus far involved final examinations. Whereas A-levels have now moved wholly to final examinations and dropped all aspects of modularised coursework. So we're going to be receiving students who've had utterly different types of experiences. And that's completely aside from any other factors that those students will have, such as dyslexia, anxiety, disability, other factors that will affect their learning. So we've got a real mixed bag of students coming at us. And we've just got to be nimble and agile and offer a range in all respects. Otherwise, we're not being inclusive. We're failing in that. We can't just do one thing and expect it to fit all. We'll just fall horribly. Yeah. But again, none of these things are straightforward. they're all complex. I mean, you